The easiest way to to reveal a conspiracy theory is just to bring on facts, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what are facts in the post-truth society?
And so what we want to do is turn the population over to black and brown people and to Muslim people, because the idea also that people are talking about is we're going to bring in more and more Muslims because it is also a conspiracy against Christians.
But there's a huge real estate market from Florida to Latin America to come here, invest, get your visa, get your green card. So is that theory also afraid of that replacement with people who has money?
Also, there is a demographic crisis in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And the future doesn't look too bright for anybody in Europe who is simply of, the Caucasian origin. Let's call it like this.
Because you're not having kids.
Yeah, we're not. I mean, I am, but I've got 3, so I did my duty, Back to what we were trying to figure out, like, how do you know it is not a conspiracy theory? And nowadays, in the post-truth world, it's very difficult, actually, simply because, first of all, the easiest way to to reveal a conspiracy theory is just to bring on facts, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what are facts in the post-truth society? It's like you've got cognitive warfare, you've got, all the, not really propaganda, but manipulation. You've got so many things going on and so many sources of information available to you that you cannot really, okay, so maybe it's about the quantity. Right, so maybe what majority believes and shares officially, even if it's kind of like, it's not true, that will be the official, and that would be considered the truth. And something else would be considered conspiracy theory, simply because it is upheld, like, the narrative is bought by minority. And what if it's the other way around? So are we talking like, what is the difference now?
If 2/3 of people who are voting Republican are thinking that the immigration policy of the Biden administration, which he doesn't even control, the Congress controls it along with the president. So the immigration policy of the Biden administration is an immigration policy that is centered around the eradication, because I'll just call it that, because this is the words that people are using, the eradication of white people here in the United States. And so what we want to do is turn the population over to black and brown people and to Muslim people, because the idea also that people are talking about is we're going to bring in more and more Muslims because it is also a conspiracy against Christians. So what that means then, when I look out, to think about the average American, and I think, whoa, if I'm Christian, I'm afraid, right? If I'm Christian, I'm afraid. If I'm white, I'm afraid. And what I'm afraid of is that somebody up there in power, someone who I don't control and I don't know, somebody up there in power is making decisions that are not in my best interest and in fact are really going to harm me. And like, wow, man, what does that mean for me as a citizen, like here in the United States? And what's it mean for the future of conflict between different groups in the United States? And I remember Lori and I were in Bogota, if you remember, like right before the panic hit, and how there were more and more Venezuelans on the street. We would walk out of our apartment and we would go one block, and we would just immediately be met by Venezuelans asking for food, asking for things, right?
No, we would just bring things with us to give to Venezuelans because we knew, it was just like, what clothes do we have? What food do we have? We would just, because we could expect to see homeless Venezuelans.
Homeless Venezuelans. And then when the COVID hit, and all the Colombians stayed inside their houses. The Venezuelans who were on the streets had no way to survive. Like, they couldn't survive because they survived off of people who would give them money as they were asking for money. And it created such intense conflict between Colombians and Venezuelans, when in fact you're really, in some ways, you're the same people, right? I mean, it's not different nationality, but it's the same, they're human beings, right? So I'm wondering about, when I think about what this means for the conflict of the future, I think about what you went through in Colombia at that time.
There's a piece missing here about immigration, because it seems like we are assuming that those immigrants are, we're talking just about illegal immigration and poor people migrating.
But also legal immigration here.
I'm about to say that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
How about people in Florida from Latin America starting businesses, big businesses, having visas for working visas? I don't know where other countries are welcome to start businesses here, but there's a huge real estate market from Florida to Latin America to come here, invest, get your visa, get your green card. So. Is that theory also afraid of that replacement with people who has money to go to the United States and start something? Or are we just afraid of people? Or are the theory just afraid of people who doesn't have anything? Because that's a different conversation.
Okay.
We're not talking about exactly of the action of going from one country to another, but the way, or even more, the type of people. It sounds mean and it's hard to recognize, but it seems like we choose who is okay to be here because they have something for us, or I'm just including in the society, but just talking about the conspiracy. So it's more about something else.
We, conservative white Christians, are being replaced by people who are not us. It doesn't matter to a degree in the face of it whether we're being replaced by rich people or poor people or whatever the case is. It doesn't really matter.
How do you know?
I'm just going by what the polls are saying. But in truth, we know that people are less afraid, Americans are less afraid of wealthy immigrants than they are poor immigrants.
So one of the things we were having a conversation earlier this morning, not just us, but a group of us, and it didn't seem like the issues of immigration in the United States were so unique. And Sam shared some data this morning that the United States is actually down below the 20th country in terms of who has the most migration into their country or the most refugees, right? So we're very low on the scale. So I think I wish we could just broaden out to what are the kinds of things, like you're saying, some people in this country are saying, or the trope is white people are going to be replaced, right? Who are maybe in what you've seen where you live or around you, what are is there a similar, these people are afraid that those people are going to replace them or that those people are going to take something away from their culture? What would here in this moment, what we're talking about is a white fear. Are there similar tropes about those people are going to do this to us, these people, in not white Americans and other people, Americans, but Poles and somebody, or ex-Poles and Northern Poles? Is there, do you see that?
Like with all the Ukrainians, right?
Yeah, but we actually had that situation and we discussed this today morning as well. One of the reasons, as I told you, why the Polish government denied the Middle Eastern refugees and African refugees Was simply because, first of all, due to the security situation, because they knew that our society is just not ready for, we're pretty xenophobic. We're like 94% of white Catholics. So our government knew that this might end bad also for the people. But secondly, also there is a demographic crisis in Europe. Mm-hmm. And the future doesn't look too bright for anybody in Europe who is simply of, the Caucasian origin. Let's call it like this.
Because you're not having kids.
Yeah, we're not. I mean, I am, but I've got 3, so I did my duty, But the thing is that the demographic growth of non-Caucasian, non-Europeans is pretty impressive, and this is what our government also used to some extent.
Ah.